everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Brittany Storm and I am a freelance digital/graphic emo artist. I've been making emotes for the past year and a half now, and I want to share with you guys how to draw emotes with your iPad and Procreate. The first iPad I was using was a 3rd generation. It was about 9.7 inches, and I was using the 1st gen Apple Pencil. The iPad that I currently use now is the 5th generation iPad Pro at 12.9 inches. Big boy, okay? Big boy. I haven't even changed the background on my iPad yet. I'm pretty lame. With the 2nd generation Apple Pencil, which is missing. Oh my goodness, I don't even know where it is. You do not need the most expensive iPad out there. Like, I started on the teeny weeny one, which I got on sale for like $300. In the end, it's all about learning and obtaining skill. If you do not have Procreate already, go ahead and purchase it from the App Store. It's about $9.99 USD, and it's totally worth it. Like, it is the best drawing app that I've used out there on the iPad, of course. There's also Clip Studio Paint, but that is for another video. With that being said, let's get started. Now, I always draw my emotes in 4 simple steps. First, I do a sketch, then I do a line, then I do color, and then finally I do shading and lighting. First thing we're going to do is we're going to pick the size of our canvas. Now, I always start with a 500 by 500 pixel canvas with 300 DPI. The reason I do such a high DPI is just in case my clients or anybody I'm making emotes for, friends, whatever, can use the emotes for like Twitch graphics or merchandise. Now, you don't have to do 300 DPI, 72 DPI is fine. The most important thing here is that we're drawing in a square canvas. So whether you want to do 1000 by 1000 pixels or 500 and 500 pixels or even like 240 by 240 pixels, as long as it's a square canvas, you're gonna have no problems. So first thing I do before my pen even touches the screen is I look for references. References are going to be your best friend when it comes to drawing. Now, what I do first is I go ahead and I go into my brush library and I go to sketching and I pick the Procreate pencil brush. This is what I always use for my sketching. I think it does the job, like we're just sketching. Most of the time when I'm making an animal or character, I always start off with a circle. Now, thanks to Procreate's quick shape tool, it's really easy to make circles. If you don't know where to find your quick shape button on your Procreate app, you need to go into preferences. It should be in there somewhere. Your best bet right now, because I don't remember how to do it, is to Google it. Proportion is super important when it comes to drawing anything, really. So making sure you have like guidelines. I always draw lines in between all my circles. If they're looking in 3/4 view, on the side, if they're looking front facing, I make sure to put my lines in the appropriate area. Don't try to ever make your sketch perfect. You want crunchy lines. Don't try to make your sketch perfect. It's called a sketch for a reason. Don't be afraid to make love to that undo and redo button. Don't be afraid to use those transformation tools. Who wants to keep you drawing the same shape a million times when you can just shrink it smaller? Don't be afraid to experiment and go crazy. Once my sketch is complete, I then go ahead and take a good look at my emote. I like to like zoom it out, zoom it back in. And if I find it a little too small, I go into my transformation tools and I just stretch her out a little bit. Make it as big as I can without cutting too much off. Like, don't be afraid to cut like an ear tip off or like half the butt. You know, like you can't fit all of that into this little tiny square. It's impossible. And the most important thing as an emote artist is to make sure you're capturing that emote in such a small size. Now, this is where I'll go into my layer where my sketch is, and I will decrease the opacity. Once I do that, I will then make a new layer. And I will go ahead into my brush library again and I will go to inking and I use the brush Studio Pen. I had to look it up. I keep my brush size anywhere from like 5 to maybe 28. I don't like to go any bigger than that. But the thing with emote drawing is you don't want your lines too thick and you don't want your lines too thin. So now this is where I go in and I just line where I need to. Now this is where I abuse that quick shape button. I also rotate and zoom out a million times, and I click the undo button a bajillion times because I am not a robot, I am human, I make mistakes all the time. Now once my lining is complete, this is where the fun part begins. We get to color! I'm going to be teaching you guys a magic trick. Are you ready? Go into your layers and go ahead and double tap on your lining layer and look for the button called reference. You're going to click it, and if you did it correctly, it should say reference right under the layer name. Now go ahead and make a new layer and make sure that layer is under your liner layer. This is where the magic starts. Go ahead and go into your color palette, pick the color that you want, where you want it, drag and drop. Bam! Magic. Now you're drawing on a completely different layer, and if you need to go ahead and change that color really quick, or when it comes to shading and lighting, which we'll get to next, it'll make shading and lighting certain colors a lot easier than doing it all on the liner layer. Now the downside to the drag and drop reference layer coloring option is if you have a gap in your liner, or if you have like small little crevices, you're gonna have a problem. It's either gonna like color the whole emote, you're gonna have little white spots everywhere. That's fine. Use it where you need to and hand color the rest in. I always like to make sure I zoom in and make sure like the color is where it needs to be. With crevices, there could be that one pixel that just doesn't get filled, and then when you go to export your emote, you're like, oh my goodness, there's like transparency in the middle of the emote. Like, this is not okay. Now each color I do is on its own separate layer, and the reason I do that is because I always add shading and lighting to each color that I draw in my emotes. You don't have to do that if you want to have just like a simple colored emote. Good stuff. But if you do want to do shade and lighting, try to make sure that most of your colors are on separate layers, so then we can add clipping masks to them, and I will get to that in the next bit. Once your character has all its basic colors, you get to do the next and final step, shading and lighting. The brushes I use for shading and lighting is the Studio Pen and the airbrushing tool soft brush. I reduced the opacity by 80%. Don't be afraid to experiment with colors. What I mean by that is, for example, so the character I'm drawing right now is Luna from Sailor Moon. Her fur is like a purpley blue. Instead of just making like that shade of color, like a little lighter with white or a little darker with black, we can like go over and use like light purple as the highlight and a super dark blue as the shade. The important thing about shading and lighting is making sure you know where your light is coming from. So if it's coming from this way, you want it light on this side and dark on this side. If it's coming from this way, same idea. If you struggle with shading and lighting, honestly, just like pick a side. Like everything on the right is gonna be shade and everything on the left is gonna be light. Again, like feel free to experiment. You can undo and redo as many times as you want. Don't be afraid to experiment. This is all a learning process. Everybody learns differently, and the only way we learn is by doing it over and over again and obtaining that skill. So earlier I was talking about this thing called clipping mask. So to do clipping mask, what you need to do is you need to create a layer over your color layer that you want to shade and light. So go ahead and put a layer above the layer that you want to shade and light, and you're gonna double tap the empty layer above it, and then you're gonna go ahead and find clipping mask. Once you have clipping mask on, you can go ahead and draw anywhere, and it will show up in the layer below, but only in the spaces. I have a hard time explaining this. It will kind of make like your layers attached to each other, and then you're able to draw inside where you colored before only. So something that I do that you don't have to do is I color my line art just because I feel like black is just too bam, and I really like to add a little pizzazz to my emotes. Some emote artists will color their lines and then make like another outline of the emote with like black or white you can totally do that. It adds contrast to the emote. But if you just want to leave your emote with just black outline, that also works too. Or if you just want to color certain things with certain outlines, all you have to do is add a clipping mask above your liner and just color in where you want it to be different colors. If you like how your emote looks, now all that's left to do is resize it. But before you resize it, if you want to test your emote, there is this website you can go to called levi506.net. I'm going to leave that link down below so you guys have easy access to it. This is where you can upload your emote and see it all in the different sizes, in light mode or dark mode, in Twitch chat, and in Discord. Don't forget to always save your emotes as PNG. Super important to save as PNG. That's what Twitch accepts. So forget JPEG. Goodbye. Love you, but not really. So there's a bunch of different ways to resize your emotes. You can resize it right in Procreate. If you have Photoshop, you can go ahead and resize it in Photoshop. And there's this free drawing app called GIMP. So to resize your emotes in Procreate, you're going to need to duplicate your emote. So you're going to go ahead, open the app, you're going to click select, you're going to click on the emote that you want to duplicate, you click duplicate, and then you go inside that emote, you click the wrench tool, and then once you do that, you click canvas, and then you click crop and resize. Make sure that you have resampling canvas toggled on. This is where you can change the DPI and the canvas size. I always make my emotes 112 by 112. After that, you repeat the process for 56 by 56 and then 28 by 28. Twitch now has the option of auto sizing the emotes, so you could stop right at 112, but if you want to go all the way to 28, feel free to do so. Do not be alarmed by your emote pixelating. It's going from 500 by 500 pixels to 28 by 28 pixels. We're gonna lose some, you know, but if you zoom that puppy out, it'll look exactly like the emote you just drawed. Just really tiny, like a little bitty Minnie Mouse. Once that is done, you have your emote and it's ready to go. Yay, you did it. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like. If you have any questions, comment down below or send me a message. And if you want more content, don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to be trying to upload a lot more content to this channel in the near future. If you want to purchase today's emote, go ahead and head over to my Etsy store, Brittany Storm Art. I will be leaving my Etsy shop link down below. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Bye, guys!